Previously on Sharpe. Richard Sharpe, once a penniless private, rose through the ranks by guts, brilliance, and sheer stubbornness. In the previous episodes, we have seen him fight the French, battle snobbish officers, capture eagles, go head first into bloody sieges, outthink spy masters, and ultimately lose the woman he loved. Now, in Sharpe's honour, grief has made him vulnerable, and one of his greatest enemies is about to strike. It's 1813, and Napoleon's army is weakened after a disastrous campaign in Russia. His army is in retreat, and we see Ducos with Napoleon plotting. This section is an addition to the adaptation and isn't included in the original novel. Wellington is preparing to drive the French out of Spain, but off the battlefield, the war is getting far more complicated, especially as Richard Sharpe, our noble hero, is mourning the death of his wife Teresa. He's much more quieter, colder, and a lot more distant. And as mentioned, Theodore Atkin returns as Ducos, and this time, he's not just targeting Sharpe, he's trying to fracture the entire Anglo-Spanish alliance, his weapon, a forged accusation, one that could destroy Sharpe's honour and cost the British the war. Ducos coerces La Marquesa, an embedded French agent, to write a letter falsely claiming that Sharpe tried to force himself on her. The letter is sent to her powerful Spanish husband, the Marquess, who challenges Sharpe to a duel after morning prayers, which was very decent of him if you ask me. Sharpe, still in a vulnerable state, accepts fully without hesitation. Now, we do know that Sharpe is very much a ladies' man, but he certainly wouldn't force himself on a woman. After some early sparring, the duel is interrupted by Nairn. Now, this is another change for the TV adaptation. It was in fact Lieutenant Colonel Leroy who shows up and ends the fight in the novels. Nairn also isn't in the novel version of the episode. He takes the role that would have been given to Hogan. That night, the Marquess is murdered in his sleep. Not by Sharpe, of course, but by the brutal partisan El Matarif, acting under Ducos' orders. The crime is pinned on Sharpe, with the evidence somewhat circumstantial, but politically damaging. Wellington finds himself trapped. In order to preserve his alliance with Spain, he must make a sacrifice. Sharpe is arrested, tried, and sentenced to hang. With Nairn, Wellington's cold and calculating intelligence officer, he sees the hand of Ducos in this affair. He arranges for a condemned soldier to be hanged in Sharpe's place, keeping the execution at a distance so the deception will go unnoticed. Sharpe's chosen men are obviously rather upset by this perceived hanging, but their loyalty is without question even after they attempt to rescue Sharpe. During the middle of the night, Nairn wakes Harper and, to his surprise, Christ himself hath risen. That's right, Sharpe is back, to the surprise of probably no one. Nairn quietly dispatches them on the mission to uncover the truth of it all. This is another change from the novel, as it is in fact a partisan boy named Mangel who accompanies Sharpe instead. Their trail leads them to La Marquesa, now imprisoned in a remote nunnery. Ducos sent two of his most dangerous agents to silence her, Father Hatcher, a fanatical priest with unshakable loyalty to the French cause, and his brother El Matarif, violent, sadistic, and unrepentant. Together, they form a gothic pair of villains, their cruelty wrapped in religious zeal and revolutionary dogma. Sharpe and Harper succeed in freeing the Marquesa, and we get the funniest scene in the entire show, Sharpe waving a chicken around like a demented madman. Now, this is played as the first time Sharpe has met the Marquesa, but in the novels, Sharpe already knows her. This is due to her appearance in the Sharpe Sword novel, which is canonically before the events of the Sharpe's Honour novel. The Marquesa confesses, but before they can return to Wellington and reveal the truth, Sharpe is captured by a French patrol and delivered to Ducos. He was though given the chance to get much nicer accommodation, but learning Ducos was based nearby, he couldn't miss out the opportunity to meet his nemesis. Here, Ducos reveals the full scale of his scheme. By orchestrating a scandal around Sharpe and presenting it to the Spanish monarchy, he has leveraged political outrage into a potential peace treaty, turning the tide back in Napoleon's favour without a single musket fired. Ducos, of course, gloats. He believes the game is won, and will finally get the best of Sharpe. But never underestimate the chosen men. Harper had returned to Nairn to report the events that occurred, so he sends Harper and the chosen men to retrieve Sharpe. Harper also sees that his child had been born with Ramona, and has been aptly named Patrick Jose Hagman Cooper Harris Perkins Harper. Say that 3 times. The names of all the chosen men who helped during the birth. We also do find that Peter Dillon Board will not be at the birth of any children he may spawn, as he was certainly a bit squeamish at the sight of it all. In one of the series' most satisfying reversals, Harper and the rest of the chosen men infiltrate the French prison in disguise, and it's classic Sharpe, bold, clever, and just chaotic enough to work. They free their fearless leader and return to the army just in time for the Battle of Vittoria. The battle itself, though smaller in scope, is charged with urgency. The stakes are personal, political, and strategic all at once. We also see Ducos kill Father Hatcher as punishment for his failure. This is another change. In the TV adaptation, as you see here, he kills him, whereas in the novels he actually survives and escapes. We also have Ducos then attempting to flee, but is dragged from his horse by retreating French troops and shot by his own side in the confusion. He survives, but barely. A fittingly ambiguous ending for a villain who always slips away. For now, that is. Amid the chaos, Sharpe confronts El Matarif, who had abducted the Marquesa. They fight brutally in what wrestling fans would know as a sort of Texas bull rope match. There is no finesse, no mercy. Sharpe forces a public confession, exonerating himself before Spanish witnesses. The moment is very symbolic, the restoration of Sharpe's name, and the collapse of Ducos' entire plan. As Matarif lunges with a concealed blade to kill Sharpe, he is saved, not by a chosen man, but by the Spanish officer, who shoots the assassin dead. Now this is another change. In the novel, Sharpe actually slits the throat of El Matarif, instead of Mendoza shooting him. But I do understand this change, as it is a somewhat powerful gesture. Mendoza acknowledging Sharpe's innocence, and rejects the false narrative spun by Ducos. And in the end, it's classic Sharpe. Him saving the day, and getting the girl. Well, perhaps maybe just a kiss, but still very much Sharpe, nonetheless. As mentioned, there are some key differences to the TV adaptation from the novel. But for me, it's certainly nothing that damages the character development of Sharpe. And unlike the heavy entries in the Sharpe series, this episode strips away most of the military spectacle until the final act. Instead, it plunges us into a world of betrayal, politics, espionage, and emotional reckoning. Sean Bean's portrayal of Sharpe has always been grounded in a hard-won balance between toughness and vulnerability. In Sharpe's Honour, that balance shifts dramatically, because this is at Sharpe's lowest point. Teresa, his wife and emotional anchor, is dead, and that loss haunts him and every frame in the first act. He is much more quieter than usual and very much withdrawn. And when the false accusations are levelled, Sharpe is caught completely off guard. Not because he's surprised someone wants to destroy him, but because he no longer has the strength to fight back. The man who once stormed headfirst into a French fort doesn't even raise his voice when sentenced to die. There's no indignant speech, no appeal to Wellington, just heavy silence. A sense that perhaps finally he has nothing else left to give. But that arc is precisely what makes the climax so powerful. Through the covert mission, the escape, and the journey back to the army, Sharpe slowly reclaims himself. Not through revenge, but through action. And by the time he confronts El Matarif, it's not about survival, it's about honour, as the name suggests. Restoring his name he earned through years of blood and sacrifice. And when he wins, it isn't a moment of victory, even though it very much feels like it, it's a moment of release. Dara O'Malley as Sergeant Harper continues to serve as Sharpe's conscience, comrade, and counterweight. And with the addition of Harper joining Sharpe in his journey in search of the truth, it helps build the bond between them even further. And in a world full of officers who change with the wind, Harper remains utterly consistent, fiercely loyal, morally grounded, and quite pragmatic. The Chosen Men don't feature heavily until the third act, but their presence during the escape from Ducos' stronghold and at the Battle of Vittoria reminds us that Sharpe's leadership was never just about rank, it was earned, man by man. And I really did actually enjoy the subplot with the birth of Harper and Ramona's child. The Chosen Men looking after her and helping her through it shows, as Hagman said to Nairn, that they are family and they treat each other with love. Now, as we know, Ducos has always been a quiet antagonist, smug, clever, and dangerous more for his political reach than his battlefield prowess. But Sharpe's Honour marks his transformation into one of Sharpe's major villains. Theodore Atkin plays him with calculated venom. Ducos isn't unhinged, he's methodical. His plot, to frame Sharpe and collapse the Anglo-Spanish alliance, is terrifyingly plausible. And this is what makes Ducos truly dangerous. He's a villain who operates within systems. And his scene with Napoleon at the beginning, which was added to the TV adaptation, elevates him from a background player to a geopolitical manipulator. And when his plan collapses, we see a glimpse of something rare, that's desperation. His execution of Father Hatcher in a fit of rage shows that Ducos' composure is a mask, one that fractures when control slips from his hands. With Ducos, who initially was just introduced as a tool, was La Marquesa. She evolves into one of the episode's most compelling characters, and in many ways, she mirrors Sharpe. Both are being used by larger forces, both are bound by duty and expectation, and both ultimately choose to reclaim their agency. And there is actually a real chemistry between her and Sharpe. But the episode wisely doesn't just push it into a love story. Yes, there is some attraction between them, but it's more about respect. And if Ducos is the mind of the plot, El Matarith and Father Hatcher are the fists. They serve as the episode's physical threats, but they're more than just thugs. El Matarith is chaos incarnate. His loyalty to no one but his brother and his cause makes him unpredictable. He thrives on fear and brutality. In contrast to that, Hatcher is cold, devout and deluded, a man whose belief in his own righteousness justifies unspeakable cruelty, and together they represent the zealotry and moral decay that thrive in war's grey zones. And at its heart, Sharpe's honour is about reputation and how easily it can be destroyed by those in power. Sharpe is sentenced not because anyone truly believes he's guilty, but because his death is politically convenient. Wellington's hand are tied, and the Spanish demand blood, and so a decorated officer is sacrificed to save an alliance. And I think it's directed quite well. It's a quieter pace than most entries in the series, and that's its strength. The first half leans heavily on dialogue, atmosphere and political tension. The duels are brief, and the violence is sharp, not prolonged though. It's definitely a slow burn episode, but a powerful one. A cerebral, emotional journey that examines the cost of a soldier's reputation and the vulnerability of honour. It's not just a story of redemption, it's a story of resistance, against lies, against grief, and against the machinery of war. And as an episode, it earns its place as one of the most mature, layered, and quietly powerful episodes in the entire series. Thanks for watching this video. Please do like, share and subscribe to help the channel grow, and follow me on my social channels. Thanks again, and I'll see you over the hills and far away.